working in HR in Shell, probably 1,500 of them were business partners, HR business partners. Then what happened was that we set up the HR service centers in central locations, and we found that actually a lot of what the HR business partners were doing was not strategic HR work contributing to the business, but it was just stuff that needed to get done and that the business manager wanted to get done. And whether it was strategic or not, the business manager didn't care and the business partner didn't care, and they just did it. But some of that work was actually shifted to the service center. So the HR business partners found themselves with not so much of the operational ad hoc activities to do anymore. We had more strict global guidelines in many areas of HR, so there was no flexibility for the business partner to say, oh, well, I'm going to deviate from the guidelines because my business manager wants it. That was all taken away. And then, of course, they were left with the question of, okay, so what do I do in this HR business partner role? I'm supposed to sit at the business table, contribute to the business from a strategic perspective. But then we found that many of those business partner roles were actually positioned at too low levels in the company, where you basically cannot do strategic HR because the strategic HR is done at higher levels, and you just have to execute the strategy that already exists, and you cannot really change it or influence it. And this has been a realization in the last 3 to 4 years, and recently this happened after I left, but I know it's happening. The number of HR business partner roles is being reduced really a lot, and it is now limited to the very senior management teams in the company. Let's say the management teams of the top 150 to 200 managers, and one level below that. So you're talking about CEO -1 and CEO -2. At those levels, the company created and still has very senior HR business partners who can really influence the strategy, contribute to the business strategy from an HR perspective. Below that level, a lot of those roles have actually either gone or are going to go. But of course, you still have HR managers for refineries and other obvious entities where you need an HR manager. But the large numbers of business partners, that's beginning to disappear.
So just curious in that later stage that they're going to now, does that imply that a lot of the more transactional items are self-served?
Yeah, you could say that. There's self-service. There's a direct link between people and the service centers, between managers and the service centers, and because the HR policies are so tight, there's just no way that the manager can say, listen, one of my people is moving from A to B and they want to take their car. Is that possible? Can you fix that for me? No way, because it's all written down in the policy structures. So there's no way anybody can influence that. And so this is something that there's no need for an HR person to be in between, because there is no flexibility anyway. So you might as well just call off the service or get what you're entitled to from the service center. They just apply the policies. They don't have to exercise judgment, at least not at the individual level. And so that's very true. That it was partly driven by the fact that the services were completely centralized in service centers, and the policies are also centralized, very structured, very detailed. So that piece is just gone between at the local at the